I would like to start in familiar territory, if I may, about the organisation's financial picture because of the monitoring round that's about to occur. We will continue to bid into the October monitoring return for the 23.1 million, that's 23.1 million, which is our projected shortfall against our budget for this financial year. That includes 7 million to support the recovery business case to recover officer numbers to 7,000 police officers and 2,572 police staff. I was pleased to read of the Finance Minister's remarks this week that health workers in Northern Ireland will get their pay rise. Looking at the fairness of such awards, I'm sure he will be equally determined to support police pay awards, and I'll be writing to the Justice Minister and the Finance Minister in that regard. It's important that I accept and acknowledge, which I do, that ministers have a wickedly difficult job in addressing gaps in public service budgets. There are a number of reasons for this, but I don't need to go through those now with you because you know them well. As I understand the current position, health has a £614 million projected overspend, and education has one in the region of £300 million. It's worth recalling that the Northern Ireland Executive has increased the health budget from circa 3.3 billion in 2010 to around about, I think it's 8 billion today, leading to a significant increase in workforce, whilst the PS9 budget has remained almost at the same level since 2010, and our numbers have been butchered. Both education and health have received considerable uplifts in their budgets, whilst policing, that holds the fabric of our society together, has not been financially supported in anywhere near the same way. We are planning to address our dangerously low numbers through the recovery business case, but at least can we please, and those few officers and staff that we do have, get their recommended pay awards in the same way as health. Our workforce are constantly picking up the pieces of society breaking down, looking after those people that we are leaving behind. Policing is now the front line of mental health services in Northern Ireland, something we are neither resourced for or trained for. And Chief Constable colleagues of mine in England and Wales do not need to make specific pleas for the pay awards for their officers. This is just not acceptable. Notwithstanding our ongoing recruitment efforts, at the start of last month, our headcount stood at a new record low of 6,233. Letters and lobbying are just not cutting it. This is simply not good enough. It's not fair, and it leaves the police service of Northern Ireland to do a job that they simply cannot do as they would like to because they do not have the numbers. Let me again be clear, we cannot keep people safe with these numbers. We were unsuccessful again, this time in the June monitoring round, in getting support for our recovery business case or our wider funding gap, in spite of strong lobbying. In the coming weeks, it's absolutely crucial that Northern Ireland's politicians recognise policing as a priority public service in the way it does for other public services. A further failure by the Executive to do so will result us in failing to protect people and deliver on our policing plan. We cannot do this job unless you give us the tools to do it. The October monitoring round, as we've heard from the Chair, will now slip to later in the year, continuing the uncertainty and frustration of our planning. It also limits the time available for us to respond to budgetary decisions. This cycle of annual budget allocation and the reliance on in-year funding are symptoms of underlying structural problems with how policing is funded in Northern Ireland. In the past month, there was a court hearing on 2023's data breach, which shone a light on our financial strain. When I came into office, resolving this issue was just one of a number of priorities, not just for legal compliance, but also for the workforce. We're working closely with the Department of Justice and Finance to find a way forward that is fair and affordable. But all fiscal rules dictate that should be settled as soon as possible. It will make it far more affordable in the long term. I was delighted to note that in Westminster, the Northern Ireland Affairs Committee has announced a new inquiry into policing and security in Northern Ireland. As we approach the 25th anniversary of the PSNI, I believe this is a welcome chance to take stock, scrutinise how far policing has come and where it needs to go. It's also a crucial opportunity to challenge aspects of how policing is funded. I recommend the board look at the terms of reference. I also welcome the announcement of the joint framework on legacy, particularly if this results in a system people can finally trust, which provides victims with the information they've been craving for years. However, for a revised Legacy Commission to work, the planning must include additional funding for policing. Currently, legacy investigations cost our organisation £24 million a year. It's not right that the cost of dealing with legacy comes out of our core budget, which is meant to be spent on policing Northern Ireland today. That money should be paying for our neighbourhood and response officers. As you mentioned, Chair, on September the 24th, I welcome the publication of the McCullik Review. I commissioned this to provide an independent assessment of our use of covert surveillance powers against journalists, lawyers and other non-governmental organisations between 2011 and 2024. I want to thank Angus McCullik KC for the thoroughness and clarity which his work was approached with. The headline story of the review was not in the media at all last week. The key story of the McCullik Review was that it occurred at all, and did so with the full cooperation and support of those in this organisation, with direct, unsupervised and unprecedented access provided to all covert databases to Mr McCullik and his team. This is something he strongly commented on before the report was published last week. I very much welcome the principle and main conclusion of Mr McCullik that there's no basis for concerns that PSNI has been using covert measures in respect of journalists or lawyers in a widespread or systemic way. Perhaps I should repeat that again. I very much welcome the main and principal outcome of the report, that there's no evidence in respect of journalists or lawyers being monitored in a widespread or systemic way. According to Mr McCullik, the entire story comes from a mistaken public position, and this is a mistaken position by other bodies, of the PSNI abusing covert measures against journalists and lawyers that's come from a, as he describes, compounding or snowballing effect that he says emanates from 5 particular issues. Firstly, an assumption that the lamentable failures in the Op-Yurta investigation, and particularly the unlawful treatment of Mr Burney and Mr McCaffrey, as being the tip of an iceberg. In simple terms, just because we got things so badly wrong with Mr McCaffrey and Mr Burney does not mean we've done this elsewhere, and the report says that. Secondly, the number of communications data applications relating to journalists and lawyers in our June 2024 PSNI report to this board, which gives a misleading impression of the scope and use of powers that's been, in Mr McCulloch's words, misinterpreted and misreported. In simple terms, the 323 number of applications referenced in the report to the board from the PSNI were not made to identify journalist sources, as was interpreted by most people. Thirdly, Mr McCulloch points out there was a misrepresentation of a redacted meeting note produced in the Burney and McCaffrey case, which has mistakenly taken to mean that a list of 8 journalists had been the subject of routine surveillance. Again, this was not the case. Fourthly, Mr McCulloch comments that historical serious intrusion by state authorities, including before there was statutory regulation, has led to a number of these concerns. And finally, he identifies that because of the limitations in statutory remedies to provide positive answers to concerns in the realm of covert procedures, and the general policy of neither confirming or denying the alleged use of such measures in any case, has again compounded the issues. The review, though, has, as I accept, shown examples where there have been deficiencies, failings of process and of record keeping. I would have been stunned if it had not. We've immediately taken steps to correct these and to put in place safeguards that will prevent them from happening again. As you know, I fully accept the Review 16 recommendations. This review reflects the PSNI's ongoing commitment to transparency and openness. The recommendations will all be advanced through a timely programme of work to ensure we are constantly seeking to achieve the highest of standards in the application and authorisation process for covert measures. ACC BEC will lead an implementation team and will ensure the recommendations are addressed and will report into the PSNI data board chaired by the Deputy Chief Constable. Any large organisation undergoing this level of legal scrutiny, provided by Mr McCullik and his team, looking over a 14-year period of covert activity, should expect such issues to come to light. Although not part of his terms of reference, from my reading of the report, there is no finding that officers acted in bad faith or any referencing of any misconduct or any criminality. And I would hope that Mr McCulloch would have commented if there was such. I've been reassured by what Mr McCulloch describes as the proper emphasis on the far more numerous examples of careful and considered practices processed by diligent professionals in full accordance with the legal framework and all of its safeguards. I'm a huge advocate for openness and transparency, even in the arena of covert measures, and especially where legitimate public concerns are expressed. This comprehensive report sets out that no evidence exists of the abuse of those powers by the PSNI, but that our processes in the application process needs to improve, and that will happen. I very much look forward to updating the board on our progress in responding to his recommendations. Mr McCulloch will return to assess that progress and report on any findings that are relevant to what is already reported upon from any ongoing and unfinished IPT proceedings. This entire process is a hugely positive step in transparency and learning for UK policing, and to ensure that this organisation is an exemplar in authorising covert authorities. I do just want to thank all of those on the group that supported this work, the group of experts and stakeholders. Without their help, the report would not have been as fulsome as it was. Finally, last month I had the great honour of attending an annual lunch for the Police Widows Association, which should remind us all of the sacrifice and risks of being a police officer. And last Sunday, Chair, as you referenced, you and I both attended the National Police Memorial at Coventry Cathedral. Both occasions were moving reminders of the ultimate sacrifice made by so many colleagues who lost their lives in the line of duty, and a chance to stand together with their families. This is a deeply personal issue for me and the senior team, and will remain a priority of ours to ensure their service and sacrifice are not forgotten. And on the 17th of September, as you mentioned, Chair, we had the pleasure of hosting our highly commended awards ceremony at the Great Hall at Stormont. I was delighted that the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Policing Board and the Chief Exec were in attendance, and also want to thank Trevor for effectively hosting the event for the PSNI. This annual event is one of the most important in our calendar. It provides an opportunity to recognise officers and staff who've gone above and beyond in their service to the public. This year, 35 colleagues were acknowledged for acts of exceptional courage, dedication and professionalism, both on and off duty. Listening to their stories, told by their colleagues, it was humbling and inspiring, and a powerful reminder of the remarkable people who make up this organisation. Their actions embody the very best of policing. I want to place on record my gratitude not only to those who received awards, but to all their families and colleagues who support them and allow them to do the job that they love. And I'm very happy to take questions, Chair.